Well, today on the Income Flip podcast, I have my good friend, Julia Lashay. Julia, welcome to the Income Flip podcast.
I'm so glad to be here, Rob. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad I got an invite.
Well, you've been busy, right? And we were catching up a little bit behind the scenes. 21 years. That is how long you've been at Keller and in your particular marketplace and market center. And you're now the OP. So I want to unpack that story. You've also written a book. I want to unpack that story. Really, what I love to do is unpack the story of the entrepreneur, right?
All right, that's what I am.
I'm curious, did you start in real estate as a baby at 21 years ago? Like, was that your first market center ever?
Yeah, so I actually started real estate. I took a assessment my senior year in high school and said I should be a property manager. And in the state of Minnesota, you have to have a real estate license for that. So I went to go to weekend classes and do classes for that. And then they were talking about selling houses, and it sounded like something I could do easy enough. So from 18 years old, in fact, I don't think I was old enough to take the test yet. I had to wait to turn 18 to take the
Oh, wow.
test to become a real estate agent, and I got my license, and I joined one of the two major companies that you joined in this town back then in the late 90s. There was only like two big ones that you joined, either the Big Red or Big Blue. One of those two, and it wasn't KW, right? So
Yeah.
I joined a real estate company there. I did that for a little while, and then I eventually joined Keller Williams when it opened in 2005 in Minneapolis, and I was one of the first agents at that what we call market centers. Yeah.
Well, you said you've pretty much done just about everything in the market center. So help me understand your journey as a
Yeah.
real estate entrepreneur, because I mean, you were a baby, like 18, getting your
I
license.
was.
Like,
And so also, Rob, I always tell the story. When I was 18, I was also working at AT&T Wireless. And I was the supervisor on duty. So like if you're mad about your cell phone and you're like, I want to talk to a supervisor, you get some 18-year-old kid, that was me, that sits on the escalation desk to take your escalated calls. And I was the supervisor on duty. But at the job, they told me what to say, when to say it, what time I had to be there, what time I had to leave. We even had to track how long we were in the bathroom. And I wasn't going to be able to, stay there long. I actually did stay there long. I worked there part time, like for 5 years. But during that time, what happened was I asked for some time off and they told me no. And I did what any entrepreneur would do. I quit. Yeah, I quit. And I never worked a job again. I quit and I went and sold real estate full time. And like I said, during that time, I had found Keller Williams to be a home for me in Minneapolis. I met a guy named John. I have a whole class I teach about that. I met a guy named John. And it's just about being a good leader and an inclusive leader. And he made me feel like I could be somebody.
that's
And so I
awesome.
stuck with him for 20 years.
Unbelievable. Well, what was the spark though? What was the initial idea, right? You were working at AT&T and T
Yeah.
and there must have been some kind of initial spark that
Yeah, the
happened.
initial spark was I could not freaking get there on time. I kept getting those little demerits. You know what I mean? I needed to do a job where I didn't have to live like that. And particularly, I was a single mom. I had a baby also when I was 18, and he was,
Okay.
and it was just, I didn't want to live like that. And as he got older, I wanted to go on the field trips, and I wanted to do the lunch with your kids. And I couldn't do any of those things with an employee type lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when they gave me the opportunity, I call it when they freed up my future and told me no, I couldn't take my vacation. That's exactly what happened. They freed up my future, and I quit. And that was the spark. It was the fact that I really value my time, even to this day. I don't want anybody else to control my time. Even if I didn't make a lot of money, I want to be in control of my time.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. You know, it's
yeah,
it's interesting. I That resonates a lot with me. It resonates a lot because part of my journey has been I always wanted to create freedom in my life. Freedom
yeah,
is another word for options, right? And I
yep.
wanted to be able to have options in my life, and this business allowed me to be able to do that. But you said you got your license in '05. So let's talk
No, I
about
got my
the
license in '99. I
oh
joined Keller Williams in
99.
'05.
Oh,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Okay. So you were heading into a headwind. You didn't know it in '05, or were you aware that the market was going to change?
I was not aware, and I was one of those people, Rob, that bought. By the time I was 23, I had 6 properties, and I had my own property management company. I managed my own properties and clients' properties as well. And I was like, I thought I was really doing it. I had the little fake Mazda 626 that looked like a Lexus, the little fake Lexus. I had mine. I had a nice house in the hood. I thought I was doing something. And I had 6 properties leading up until, I was doing really well until I wasn't. And I get what you're getting at is probably the crash came, shortly after that. And I actually lost all but one of those properties in the crash. I filed bankruptcy. I mean, the problem was I was a realtor.
Yeah.
So when my tenants couldn't pay, and also I had rented to the wrong people, like 3 of my tenants went to jail at the same time.
Oh
So
my
that's
goodness.
a problem. Yeah, that's a problem. And so nobody's paying these mortgages, and I certainly can't pay them because I sell houses, and none of these houses are selling anymore.
Yeah.
And so it was a big catastrophe, and I lost everything in the turn, and I actually ended up going to get a job. I was a broker at a competitor, so that's the part of my KW story we don't talk about when I ran away from home.
Yeah.
There was a stint where I did run away from home, and I became a broker at a competitor, and I worked there for 3 years where he paid me, but again, in the crash, he came to me and said, "Julia, I can't afford to pay you anymore. You're going to have to sell houses." And that's when I said, "Nah, I'll go home," and I went back to KW.
Well, I don't want to gloss over that period because, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, like I lost all this, I did this, but man, that must have been really, really tough, right? You're a
Oh
single
man,
mom, right? You're losing these properties, and I always say that entrepreneurs get forged in fire, right?
yes, yeah,
Tell me a little bit about
yeah.
some of the lessons and some of the just the forging in fire, right?
It's
Once you
definitely a
come out of
story about resilience. And I remember vividly, I remember exactly where I was, on what street I was on, and I was watching these people leave McDonald's. They were employees with their little, turquoise McDonald's shirts they had on, and they were leaving McDonald's, and I was wildly jealous. I was so jealous, like, because I knew they were going to be getting paid on Friday, and I
yeah.
wasn't. And my pride wouldn't let me go say, "Can I work here too?"
Hmm.
And I didn't know what to do. It was robbing Peter to pay Paul, trying to figure out, how to make ends meet when you're in this real estate game. And because I was an entrepreneur and I took so much pride in being an entrepreneur, I wouldn't go fill out a job application anywhere
Yeah.
and work for somebody. And so I suffered and I struggled through that until I actually ended up going back to KW as the market center administrator. And I worked in that capacity, which for those of you who aren't familiar with the KW structure is basically an office administrator slash bookkeeper. You pay all the commissions, you pay all the bills. And I worked that job for 5, 6 years.
Julia, you were like 26, 27 around
Probably
that age?
somewhere around there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I always say I grew up here, at KW,
Of course.
because I did. But
You
I
know
and
what a interesting role to move into. Did you have a bookkeeping background? Did you have to learn on the fly? Like, tell me a little bit about that because, what a great place to actually learn how to run a business as well, having to do the books
that's
for the
true.
business. Right.
Correct. Yeah. I did initially when I went so I participated in something called PSEO, post secondary education option, where you can go to college while you're in high school. So I didn't do a traditional high school model. I actually went to high school at the college, and you get college and high school credits. And so I was in an accounting major. So they were like, "Oh, do a T model. Okay, easy enough. I know debits and credits." So I was able to pass the test they gave me because I actually did go to school for that at one point. But it was a kind of I put a spin on that role because I sold houses. I mean, I'm still a realtor by heart. I sold
Yeah.
houses in that role, and I recruited agents in that role. And I had a relationship with our team leader. He recruited what we called market share agents, agents who were already licensed, and I recruited all new agents. And that's how I kept my interest in it because obviously I probably don't come across as a bookkeeper or an accountant, but my interest stayed in it because I had the opportunity to do so many different things in that role.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell the story about I met a guy named John because he ran that office, but he allowed me so much freedom and flexibility to be and do anything. I started a nonprofit while I was the MCA. I was teaching first time homebuyer classes I served on every committee, on every board that had anything to do with home ownership while I was, in that role. He allowed me the freedom to kind of just be me, do
I
me.
love that.
And so it wasn't like I was just sitting there, in a back corner somewhere crunching numbers. I was getting to do all the things that I love to do. And I was building businesses alongside running their business while I was doing that. So it was a good opportunity for me.
Yeah, and seeing and also building relationships and culture and tasting different aspects of the business and understanding the area that potentially you want to play in. Because I always say real
Yeah.
estate's such a big word, right? There's so many different things you can do in this
Yes.
amazing world of real estate. It's not
Yeah.
one size fits all. And so at what point did you decide, okay, I'm going to go all in and build a team? Was that the next step? Were you like, I'm going to
Yeah,
go?
so I was actually they were bringing all these. This is about the time they start talking about coaches. All the whole coaches start popping up everywhere, real estate coaches, and they were flying in all these fancy people to come be a real estate coach for our brokerage. But I also was teaching the classes and doing the things, and so I asked them. I said, "Hey, would you consider me for that role?" And they allowed me to be the coach, and I was running a productivity coaching program, and I met a young man named Trey. And he said, and this is where our stories differ. Just recently, I said to him, what made you want to start the team? Because we partnered. I've been telling the story. He came to me and said, I want to start a team and I want you to be my partner. And therefore, we began the signature group, right? That's my version of the story. His version of the story is I made him start a team and I told him that's what we were going to do. I didn't.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it does probably sound like
It
that.
sounds about
Yeah.
right.
So we partnered and we did start a team, and for many years we're the number one team in our market center and our brokerage, and served over 200 families in some good years and 100 in some years, and absolutely helped close the homeownership gap that exists here in Minnesota. And so that's when we began to start the team and do all the team stuff. And I had this vision that actually I had been watching Housewives of Dallas. And I decided I wanted to sell those houses. So I wanted to move to Dallas and sell luxury houses in Dallas. That was like my vision for this team. And we were going to be Signature Group Luxury. And that was the next step. So I actually did pack up everything to move to Dallas. And life happened. My son passed away from cancer during that transition. I did go to Dallas, but COVID happened as soon as I got there. And we were in quarantine. It was just nothing that I thought it was going to be. And we never did get the team off the ground in Dallas because I met a guy named Gary Keller. Yeah. And that changed everything. Yeah.
Well, Julia, one, that must have been so difficult. I'm so sorry to hear about that. How old was your son when he passed?
My son was 20 years old. He
Wow.
had just come home from college, and he was in actually his second year in college, and he was an athlete. So throughout the course of the year, he was telling me that his leg hurt and he wasn't jumping. Did high jump, triple jump, long jump, all that. He wasn't even making high school numbers. And when he came home, I took him to the doctor. They said it was a sports-related injury. But then one night, he came home from playing basketball and he couldn't walk at all. He couldn't, and he never walked again. We took him to the emergency room that night, and they diagnosed him with cancer. Turned out it was stage 4 cancer.
Oh,
I don't know
no.
how long he had it. But 4 months after that, he passed away. It was very, very quick. Yeah.
Yeah, well, something that happens so suddenly tosses everybody and everything on its head, right? Like everything that you thought was important before is no longer important, right?
Yes. Yes.
Priorities get changed, visions of your
Yes.
life change. So, help me understand that.
Yeah.
Help me
I
understand
know
that thinking.
that's a good question because for realtors, for us, and myself included, we are so, even now, I don't know if you keep hearing my phone, I keep turning it off because it keeps beeping. We're so attached to our phones. We're so attached to our phones. And after that, when I was coaching people, they would ask about, how to not be like that because I wasn't like that anymore. They said, how did you change? And I said, well, my son died. And very quickly, you realize how much none of this matters.
Yep.
Very quickly you realize that the things that matter are the people that matter to you. Which again, to your point though, Rob, real estate provides the flexibility for you to be creative in how you spend that time with your family and the people you love. I have a keynote that I do a lot of times. It's called Keep Building, and I share some of these stories of resilience that I've endured. And I talk a lot about making sure you spend time in the right places because you cannot get time back.
Hmm.
Time does not flow upwards in an hourglass. Once it's gone, it's gone.
It's gone.
And so
Right. So
it
our most
changes my
precious,
perspective.
yeah, it's our most precious asset really is time. Like you can't get it back and we don't know how
Yeah.
much we have. And yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
think
that's
of that.
why I said I love real estate because time is very important to me. But for us as entrepreneurs, it's also important that we make sure that we're spending it in the right places instead of on the constant hustle, the constant journey, the constant I'm going to work, I'll sleep when I die mentality. That is a challenge that you cannot get the days that you've missed with your family or your children or any of those things back. So I love real estate for that reason because real estate allowed me to literally be his full-time nurse. I was his full-time nurse. Sometimes he didn't want to stay in the hospital. I would take him home. I knew what to do. I knew how to do the IVs. I knew how to do all them. And I could do that because real estate allowed me that freedom and flexibility. And I can't leave out the part of the story where my market center allowed me that freedom and flexibility because they raised money at a team meeting
Oh,
and
wow.
said, and at one team meeting they raised $30,000.
Wow.
I sold listings I didn't even know I had.
Hmm.
They just took care of me during
Hmm.
that time,
Hmm.
and that was very, very instrumental in my life. But I appreciate the time I got to spend with him in his final days, and real
Yeah.
estate afforded me that opportunity. I didn't have to check in somewhere. I didn't have to be on somebody's, uh, you know, checking in for work and all of that kind of stuff. It was the freedom that you talk about that this real
And,
estate life provides. Yeah,
and the community of people around you to
one
support you
thousand percent,
in a time,
one thousand
of
percent.
darkness. So
Yeah.
you said you met a guy by the name of Gary Keller. I've never heard of him. Who is he?
Rumor has it he's one of the most influential men in real estate in the world. But
Unbelievable. An
yeah.
unbelievable soul as well. Just amazing human.
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't know that about him. I got a call. Of course, COVID happened. If y'all remember 2020 was a catastrophe. So COVID happened, and then George Floyd was killed. And then there
Hmm.
was so much social unrest and turmoil. And Gary Keller started a social equity task force. And he got together, every region assigned someone to be on this task force to work towards how do we come together? How do we make sure that this world is more equitable? What can we do about it? And although I was new to Texas, I served on the Social Equity Task Force as a regional ambassador. And they asked me to teach a class because back home, I wrote classes, taught classes. In fact, I still do. Probably a lot of diversity classes people take have been white labeled classes that I've written. And they asked me if I would do a 20-minute master class about social equity. And so I did. I stood in the Market Center in Dallas, and I just for 20 minutes just taught a master class like I
Hmm.
did. And I guess he saw it, and they called and asked if I wanted to do an interview with Gary Keller. And I said, I don't know, do I? And they were like, you do. You do. Yeah. I was like, okay. So I met him because we did an interview about social equity and what the impact of that has on real estate.
Hmm.
And then a few weeks later, I got a phone call on my Google number, which was the strangest thing. It was like, you have a call from Gary. And like getting a call from Gary is like getting a call from like God, like, God, is that you? Gary,
Yeah.
why would he be calling me? Yeah. And he just asked me a question. He said, did they ever talk about somebody coming to lead this thing? And I said, yeah, they did. And he said, when was that supposed to be? I said, it was supposed to happen and sometime around now. And next thing you know, I was in Austin and leading the I called it inclusion and belonging initiatives
Hmm.
that I thought was going to be like a 12-month, 18-month assignment that lasted 4 years. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's how I
Hmm.
met you, Rob.
Which is wild. Which is
Yeah.
wild. Right? Full circle, right? And in that process, you also wrote a book that had a lot to do with that, like helping
Yeah.
bridge the wealth
Yeah.
gap. And like, help me
Yeah.
understand, when did you get time to write the book? And you're writing courses, and you're now in charge of,
All the
this,
things. Yeah.
all the
Well,
things.
great question. So actually, Gary hired me to teach a class. I had written a class called The Color of Real Estate. And the goal was to teach 10,000 agents about the history of land ownership in the United States and our role as realtors in it.
Hmm.
And I did that. Over 40,000 agents took the class, The Color of Real Estate, to learn about the history that we don't talk about, a lot, and the land transfer and who has had access and who has not had access, and what our role as real estate professionals is in that. And from that, we actually had an opportunity to start a podcast. So we started a podcast called the Color of Money podcast. And we were able to interview high net worth individuals about how they built their wealth. And I think we're on episode 110 now.
Yeah, it's
But,
amazing. Such a great podcast.
Yeah, so the book came out of, we have all these great stories of how people have overcome barriers, how they've built, I'm talking long money, big money, generational money, and then there's a story behind how it even came to be this. So I decided to compile the history of land ownership with these stories of resilience and absolute, it's literally their strategies. It's like, here's what I did. This is what I did with insurance. This is what I did with my real estate property. This is what I did when I, all the things that I've had the privilege of learning. I share some of those stories, and here it is. Here's the book, The Color of Real Estate. I love it.
The Color of Real Estate.
Some of those stories in The Color of Real Estate, but it's really about unlocking the secrets to generational wealth. It's less about the barriers, because I'm not big on talking about barriers forever. We can talk about how we got here, and then now what? You know, and so it's mostly about the now what. It's mostly about what do I do now to build a legacy, build generational wealth. And that's how the book came to be.
Interesting, Linda. A lot of it just starts with thinking it, right? It's understanding
mindset for sure is the first thing.
Yeah, it's a mindset. You just think, hey, that I am deserving and that I can, and if they can, I can, which is why it's really important to see people of different color being able to accomplish things, because it gives you permission to be able to live a bigger life than potentially you thought of yourself, right?
That's actually the introduction of the book, is a story about when I first met Emmerich Peace and Bowman Keaty. And I had never seen, these guys were running these massive real estate empires. I had never seen anything like it in my life. I still remember the day. I went back up to my hotel room. I called my husband at the time, and I was like, oh my God, you'll never believe what I just saw. I had never seen anything like that, And I mean, they were like empires. They were running empires.
Oh yeah.
I had never seen such a thing. And that representation, that's exactly how the book starts. It made me think, maybe so could I, Because, and honestly, in my head, I don't think I ever would have, you mentioned that I'm an OP now, I'm the operating principal at a market center, and I don't think I ever would have saw that for myself or anybody that looked like me, honestly, because I had never saw it, and so seeing them made it real, and it made it attainable. Yeah.
Vision starts in your mind first, right? You have to be able to see it, and seeing other people do it. Emmerich and Bo, unbelievable people, have built unbelievable businesses. Yes. I remember Emmerich said something that's, still hits me in my heart. He said, relationships take you places that money can't. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I just remember saying,
reality. Yes.
I get that. I get that. Right. Our entire community was built on that idea that one person can lead and open doors that you never thought were possible, right? And that's what's so cool about being in the right culture or the right community or the right brokerage or the right, it opens doors, right?
Or in the right place. And it's such an important factor. So because those, by the way, are my co-hosts on the Color of Money podcast, right? And so I have the opportunity to, they're my brothers now, and you should see how, oh God, sometimes they turn it off on me and Emmerich because we go at it. But but being at the proximity of somebody like that. And so again, that's why I wrote the book, because everybody doesn't have that proximity to people who are doing those kinds of things. Or even being at the C-suite at Keller Williams and being the proximity to those conversations. I was very intentional with my time there. If the door was open, I was in the class. I think maybe you might have been at a wealth building thing. I saw you. The door was open. I went in, I went into any meeting. One meeting, Rob, I was in, Gary was leading it with some executive leaders, and he went around the table for ahas. And I said, well, thank you so much, you all, for allowing me to be here. And he said, Julia, you weren't invited. But he said, but we wouldn't have did it without you. We wouldn't have did it without you. Because it's like, when the door was open and I sat down and I knew you wouldn't
sounds about right. Gary will just call you out. Yeah.
But I was there because I had access. And I got a tell the other people what I learned, you know. So that was the advantage of having that access and that proximity. And so that's what we did. We took all those stories and put it in the book.
Julia, what inspired you then to become the OP? Like, how did that journey happen, right? Because, that's a big
Yeah.
role. I don't know if you were like, yes, I'm going to do it, or you were like, okay, like, what does this
I didn't
mean?
think, I actually thought
Yeah.
it was going to be easier than it was. So
Oh, yeah, no, because it's
I
a
thought,
lot of work.
how hard could this be? Because I saw I call him Papa John, the John that I met. Papa John had 4 offices, and he did it like his hair was never on fire, you know. So I didn't really realize it was going to be that hard. But my role at KW actually had evolved into me being in a space to help other people get opportunities. And it was my favorite part of the job. And even till just yesterday, somebody called me from the East Coast and said, "Hey, I'm looking for an OP to do this and this and this, and we need an investor for this. Who do you know?" And I have know so many people out there now. I said, "Oh my gosh, I know exactly who you need. You need so and so." And so it gave me an opportunity to provide opportunities, and I loved that. And
Yeah,
so I
you're
thought
a
being an
connector.
OP, yeah, I thought being an OP would be like, well, I'll be able to provide these agents with all these resources, all these opportunities. We'll do ancillaries, we'll do this, we'll do that. This, we're gonna just I'm gonna give everybody what they need. I'm gonna connect them with who they need to know. And that sounded really fun to me. And then I got in the job and was like, wow, this is really hard. Really hard.
Is it really hard? Was it really hard because you have so many voices that want different things? Is it really
Yeah,
hard
I like
because
to say, go ahead. Yeah.
no, just because we've been going through a season the last couple years, right? So that makes it
Yeah.
hard as well.
All of those things. I always say real estate is easy. People are hard,
Yes.
you know. So if I was just dealing with houses, this isn't a problem, but I'm dealing with 250 people, not 250 houses, right?
They all have different perspectives. They come from
Yeah.
different places. They have
You
different
cannot please
opinions.
everybody, you
Yeah.
know. And so it became that, which I still actually love. I love the people, and I still love providing opportunity, but it became harder because the market is harder,
Yeah.
and there's different challenges, and it is actually a lot. You're not just taking on a business; you're taking on a business, and you're taking on 250 people's businesses.
Yeah.
That they're counting on you to provide what they need to succeed, and all the other challenges that come with running a real estate business, the budgeting, the money, the finance, the space, the all the things,
Yeah. How did you focus? Because there's a lot of things, right?
There's a lot
A
of
lot of
things.
things to do. They don't all carry the same weight, right? Although you think they do, or we think they do. What was your North Star? What was centering you, or how did you get center? Like, what leadership lessons can you teach us running an operation of that size?
Um, and I'm still learning this because I'm only about a year and a half into this OP journey, but the people always come first. And there's a lot of opportunities I realized right away. People want to get in front of the agents all the time. They come to me and say, "Oh, Julia, we want to do this, we want to do that." And I vet those because everybody's intentions are not good. Now, I could be, in a situation where I just do whatever's best for my bottom line. That is a very real thing in this role. I can literally use these people, if you will, as pawns on my chessboard, and I can make a lot of money and it not be the best thing for all of the people in the long run. There's room for that. I absolutely would never do that, and probably so much so to my demise. Sometimes I probably could be making a lot more money. I should be making a lot more money than I'm making, but the people come first. What's best for the agents, and that's all I can say. And I just feel like if I just keep living like that, eventually the cards will all fall right for me. But
Yeah.
if it's not going to be in the best interest of the people that walk through that door every day, I'm not interested in it. So I just lead with that, with the people in mind. The
Yeah.
people come first.
Can you
Yeah.
be as agent centric as possible? Remove as much friction as possible,
Yeah.
right? Be a servant
Yeah.
leader in that role. Yeah.
My
I
very
hear that.
first experience, the leadership lesson, one of our biggest teams left. In fact, he was our biggest team, and also was the growth chair on our ALC and everything, and he left. And I didn't do something he had wanted me to do. And I love him still to this day. We have a good relationship. And he was very mad at me about it, and he left, and I was devastated, like
Hmm.
devastated. I called all my friends. Oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? And their advice was moveon.com, right? Like just keep it moving, right? Like moveon.com. But because we had a relationship for over 10 years, I
Yeah.
was heartbroken. But the reality was what was being asked of me wasn't in the best interest of all of the agents. And I
Yeah.
had to make the decision that was in, and I was the person in the seat to have to speak for everyone and say, here's the decision that's been made for the best interest of everybody here, not just the best interest of somebody. And that can be challenging because everybody's not going to always like your decisions. And
Yeah.
the longer I'm in this seat, the more I know sometimes how much people don't like my decisions. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with knowing you did the right thing for the greatest amount of people. Yeah.
Yeah. I think about running an organization the size of Keller Williams, right? Gary.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of people, a lot of voices, a
Yeah.
lot of people that have different interest, right?
Yep.
And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and so it's I always think about it and just say, man, that is some serious heavy weight that
It
has to be
is.
carried when you in responsibility when you've built something that size. But if you
Yeah.
use that idea like people first, agent centric,
Yep.
how can I remove friction? How can I help them get what they want? Of course, Keller will thrive, the community will thrive, right?
Yeah. And to your point about Gary, I think that's one of my biggest lessons I watched. People have no idea what goes on at that level so that they can just, blissfully sell real estate down in their local level. They have no idea how many battles are fought, no
Right.
idea how many lawsuits are fought without them ever knowing anything about it so that they
Yeah.
can continue to do what they do on a daily basis. It's almost like sometimes I liken it to like the military. Like I'm just sitting here in my house enjoying it. I have no idea what those people are doing on my behalf to keep me safe right now. Right.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
and that's literally what was happening at KW. You have no idea what's going on at this level to keep you and your real estate license safe right now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're keeping you safe. That's a great way to put it, right? They're taking the bullets and the arrows
Yeah.
and the critique and all the rest.
All of it. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Julia, from a wealth building standpoint, because your book was about wealth building, and when we're
Yeah.
talking about helping create the income flip in people's lives, and there's a lot of investors that are listening to this, and a lot of
Yes.
agents that
Yeah.
are listening to this, over the last 21 years, you've seen a lot of business people build things. Some have been successful, some have, crashed and burned.
Yeah.
Um, what are some of the lessons that you can teach, right, on
Yeah.
those that have built wealth? Especially, you've interviewed a lot of people on your podcast.
Yes.
Are there some commonalities that you see in the people that you've interviewed or the people that have walked through your doors in your market center that you could share and give us some of your wisdom?
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned one of them already. One of them was mindset. All of the people that we have interviewed all knew they could.
Yeah.
And there was one lady recently, and I remember her because her words stay with me. And she said, because she had scaled her business, she does like development software or something like that. She had scaled her business from like she only made $500 to almost $1 million the next year. And I thought, my God, how do you scale something like that fast? And she said, you just have to have the audacity. And so it's literally the first thing is absolutely about the mindset. You have to have the audacity to think that you can do it. And to be quite honest, for me, as a woman of color in Minnesota, there are no black OPs around here. There's
Hmm.
hardly any women OPs around here. No, in fact, like
The
nothing. Like
audacity of you to
the
do that.
audacity. You honestly have to have the audacity and the mindset of resilience. The Mamba mentality, right?
Yeah.
That's the Kobe
Yeah.
thing. The
Yeah.
Mamba mentality to be like, I'm stuck on what I'm doing. I'm doing what I'm doing. But the mindset is the first thing. The audacity to think that you're going to actually step out and try something like that. That's the first thing you absolutely have to have. And then you do have to have a mission. Like, we talk about a big why, or I like to use Simon Sinek. He talks about start with why.
Yeah.
That is so incredibly important. Your purpose, your purpose of being, because you will get knocked down. I only
Hmm.
told you a couple of stories of being knocked down, but
Yeah.
I consistently get knocked down. But without a clear mission and vision, you will give up. So what is the reason behind why you do this? What is the mission What is
Yeah.
your vision? Like that has to be very, very, very clear. You have to be clear about that. You have to have the right mindset when you're doing that. And you have to be willing to fail
Yeah.
because you're gonna fail a lot. I love that Keller Williams. We talk about failing forward. And I appreciate that because I do that a lot.
Yep.
And I appreciate the grace around failing forward, but you have to embrace failure, understanding that it is part of the journey. Earlier today, there's a guy named Corey Wright, and he has a Legacy Wealth Group. He's got a community like Grid called Legacy Wealth Group, and he was talking about, and he asked me why I was on his call, and I said, because I've had the privilege of being around some incredibly powerful people, very, very rich people, and everybody tells me to do something else. And I hear all these things, and I've failed so many times. I just want to finally get it right. But it's part of it. When I lost $50,000, you know what I learned? How to never lose $50,000 again. Like, okay. When I made that mistake, you have to understand that you don't just fail and say, oh my God, that was such a bad investment. That was such a bad idea. I should never do it again. This, oh my God, they didn't take my listing. They didn't want to list with me. I suck at this. It's part of it.
Oh yeah, it's your MBA.
Embrace it.
It's like it's your MBA,
Yeah.
right? Like that's how you learn,
Absolutely.
right? You,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Gary. I remember Gary said this one time. I was in the audience. I still remember it was the year. It was either 2009, 2010, so it was a while ago. And Gary was telling the story of how his first wife had come in and said, "Hey, I don't love you. I've never loved you, and
Yeah.
like I'm leaving you." And then his business partner came in and said, "Hey, the economy's going to hell, and like I need you to buy me out." And like before he knew it, he's in this like 10-foot hole, right? Remax had come in, taken everybody,
Yeah.
and he said, I had to learn how to jump out of a 10-foot hole. And
Yeah.
that's what that he's like, I don't think you can achieve massive success unless you've had some massive failure in your life. Right?
1000%. Yeah.
And you know what's so crazy? It's like I willed it into the universe. I remember thinking, damn, that sucks. I've never had any like massive failure in my life. And then literally like 9 months later, right, the
Yeah.
world decided to give me some massive failures,
Yeah.
and I had to learn how to jump out of a 10-foot hole,
You
right?
do. And that's where the learning comes from. That's where the skill set comes from. What do they say? A skilled sailor never got that way by
Oh yeah,
on like
safe seas. Yeah,
safe seas or something. Yeah.
yeah,
Like that's real. You don't learn how to be great at anything when there's nothing challenging. Right. So the embracing the failure part is just part of it, and you learn from it and you pivot. Right. And then you
yeah,
said the other thing I would say is the other reason. The other thing is just surrounding yourself with the right people.
yeah.
I have several different group chats that serve several different purposes. Like I just mentioned to you, in fact, there are, I think right now there's probably like 780 KW franchises. 4 of them are run by Black women out of
Wow,
700 and something, 750 something.
wow.
4. And so we experience different challenges than other people might experience. But you know what? We're on this group chat though. This group chat though. What did y'all do when this happened to you?
Yeah,
Like
you're
what,
tight. You're nice. Yeah,
yeah,
nice
and
tight knit.
those people, and I don't have group chats where we talk about frivolous, dumb stuff like people, for example. I don't have gossip chats like some girls do, or I have none of those things. I have to surround myself with the right people that are going to help me keep my right mindset, not I had failed. I would call it a failure. There was something that took place and people were disappointed in me and they told me so like 100 times in one day. We were at a family reunion and eventually my girlfriends in that chat said, okay, this is the last time we're going to talk about it. It's over. It's done. We're moving on. Done. And you have to have people that are around you that say, okay, all right, fine. Next. Right.
Dust your pants. Dust your pants.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yep,
Let's
let's
go.
go. Yeah.
Like,
And so being around the like-minded people that are building,
yeah.
and being around people that are where you want to go. I
Yes.
used to didn't ask for help. I was a single mother. I did everything on my own. I never asked for help. Now I know the people around me are like looking at their clock like I'm surprised she hasn't called by now. I call for help so many times a day. I call Emmerich all the time. I go in this group chat all the time. I call Mark Willis. I call Mark King. I call people. I call anybody who I think might know the answer to my question that can help me go forward. But that's because I have surrounded myself with those kinds of people.
Well, I've learned that is a superpower, right? The person that can. It took me actually. I don't know if this was an ego thing, a pride thing, but it took me a long time to feel like I had earned the right or permission to even ask the question of somebody. Because I felt like I had to get in the room before I had the ability to ask the question. But then I started noticing some people that would just they were brand new and they were just going straight to the source and asking the question, right? Without any and they were getting the answers and they were moving faster. And I realized, oh, you're only hurting yourself by not feeling like you have the right to ask the question.
Yeah, the
right?
audacity, right?
The audacity,
Yeah.
to just pick up the phone and say, hey, I need your help. Right.
Yeah.
And so I course corrected that about a decade ago. But I spent a good decade, feeling like I needed to earn the right to get in the room before I could ask the question. And I was like, no, that was the wrong thing. I should have been asking the questions to get into the room.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
for sure.
And going places. Somebody asked me this past weekend, I was doing a speaking engagement in Dallas, and they were asking, where do I get information? How do I get, in the room? You just go. And one of the things I see that holds people back is they'll wait for somebody to give them permission, or they'll wait for somebody to tell them or invite them, or, when there were several OPs along the way several people that I thought should own their market centers, and they would be like, well, nobody told me about FSO. Nobody told me about that class. Nobody told, you know what? You're not ready.
Yeah.
Because nobody's responsible for your success but you. You should be on their website looking and saying, what class do I need to go to? Who can I ask? Where should I go? Just show up. Google something. Okay. Investment class near me.
Just walk in and sit at the table.
If they don't want you there, they'll ask you to leave. I've been asked to leave one time before. I remember that. Okay, I was like, whatever. I've been asked. I've been kicked out of better. Whatever.
Oh my God.
But you have to have, I need the information.
Yeah.
I need the information. And so you have to have the audacity to go where the information is being given and ask people who have the worst they can tell you is no, or don't call you back, or, okay, so you didn't call me back. Okay, I'll ask somebody else, But you do have to have the audacity and surround yourself with the people who are where you want to be. Again, I cannot tell you how blessed I am to actually be on the podcast with Bo and Daniel and Emmerich. A lot of those conversations I had to grow into. Daniel used to use words that I didn't even know what they meant. I would write them down, and I would call I still joke about this. I would call my financial advisor guy, called and told him I needed a UTI. I was like, no, we just had a podcast guest on. He's like, yeah, you use these to do investments. I need a UTI. He's like, are you sure it's a UTI? Yes, a UTI. He's like, you know what a UTI is, right? I was like, yes, it's an insurance thing that I can use like to pull money from for my investment. He was like, are you sure you don't want a IUL? You know what? That's exactly what he said. Yeah, like, I don't know. I just am around the conversation. You just be around enough to ask the right questions. You know what I mean?
That's it. There's power in proximity. There's power in proximity for sure. Just get in the rooms and ask the questions. Well, Julia, if people want to be in proximity to you, if people want to book you as a speaker, if people want to, I know that you do some coaching, or do you do coaching, or do you do more like just consulting, or do you?
I'm not doing so much coaching anymore. I'm doing consulting with associations, organizations, that kind of thing. Mainly keynote speaking right now. Outside of that, and they can find me on any of my socials. It's I am Julia Lashay. It's I am Julia Lashay on Facebook, Instagram, all of it. I am Julia Lashay. Literally, I am Julia Lashay. Yeah. And also, you can go to my website, julialashay.com. But I am happy to connect with anybody. Again, that is my favorite part about this, what you're doing, knowing you, Rob, being connected to people, because somebody's going to say, gosh, I really wish there was like a group or an organization that I could join that just had, it was a community of investors, and, then I could say, oh, I know a guy, and so
I got a guy. I got a guy that can help. Yeah.
I got a guy for that. Yeah. You should join Grid, So I enjoy getting to know people, and I enjoy you inviting me on here to talk about what I enjoy.
Well, I love having you on here. One, you're a leader that people can aspire to be. I've always thought of you as uh, a bright ray of sunshine in like a dark
Oh, thank
crowd. Do you
you.
know what I'm saying? Like you have this energy, and I'm really big in energy. Like I like either
Yeah.
people give me energy, or they're taking it away, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna eliminate all the bad
Yeah.
energy in my life.
Yeah.
And so you've always been one of those people,
Thank
and
you. Yeah.
I noticed that you were really good at connecting, right? I think that that is a skill that a lot of people, if you're listening to this right now,
Yeah.
just there's power in connecting with other people and just be their friend. And like that's what I think. I felt like you made me your friend, and Julia, I
Yeah.
appreciate you doing that for me. I really do. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
thank you. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate y'all tolerating my cold. If you can't tell, I got a little cold going on, and I'm trying y'all.
Well, she's doing great. She's doing great. Julia, you're doing great. Well, I appreciate it. Well, thank
Thank
you so
you.
much for sharing time on the Income Flip podcast.
Yeah, thanks
As
for having me,
always,
Rob.
I hope to see you sometime soon at some
Yeah.
event. You know,
Yep.
you're not going to any investor events here coming up? Like,
Not off the top of my head. There's one that Bo puts on called Four. I was gonna go to Jeff Glover has a leadership one coming up in August. Of course, that's broker agnostic.
yep,
I said in August, not in August, in Austin. It's not in August. It's
you
coming
know,
up. but those are the places I'll be pretty soon. Other than those places I'm speaking at. Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julia. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob. Take care, everyone.
Take care.